In today's class, we are going to discuss about anti-epileptic drugs, and this class is divided into two parts. First is, in the part 1, we will discuss about what actually epilepsy is, what is the difference between seizure and epilepsy, what are the different types of epilepsy, and then once we have understood these things, we will see what can be the pharmacological drug targets for the anti-epileptic drugs to act upon. And in this class, we will not discuss about individual drug per se. In the next class, we will discuss about the individual drugs or individual drug classes. Focus of this class would primarily be understanding the anti-epileptic drug target. Now let us first start with what actually epilepsy is and what is the difference between seizure and epilepsy. Can anybody tell me the difference between seizure and epilepsy? Seizure is, we can say, a transient brain dysfunction, and it occurs because of episodic high frequency discharge of impulses by a group of neurons in the brain. But if a recurrent attack of seizure happens, for example, 2 or more than 2 attacks happen, we can categorize that as epilepsy. Are you getting my point? So seizure is basically a transient occurrence of sign and symptoms due to abnormal, excessive or synchronous neuronal activity in the brain. And when the seizure attack start happening on a regular interval or more than 2 seizure attack happens, we call them as epilepsy. So epilepsy is an enduring predisposition to generate epileptic seizures, and it is characterized by the neurobiological, cognitive, psychological and social consequences of this condition. Now, what might be the reason for epileptic attack? Broadly, as per the age group the patient belongs to, we can broadly or roughly we can guess the reason for the epileptic attack. In the children, the epilepsy mainly happen due to the infections such as meningitis, or it might be due to the congenital abnormalities. In the middle ages, the reason can be alcohol, infections, head injuries, or it can be drug induced, or sometimes it can be due to low blood sugar, low oxygen level, low blood sodium or low calcium. In the elderly, mostly we have seen or it has been observed that the epilepsy is due to the tumor or due to the cerebrovascular attack. The epileptic or seizure can happen. So this is how we can broadly categorize the causes of epilepsy as per the age group. Now, what are the various types of epilepsy? Two things needs to be remembered, or two things need to be understood. One thing, we can classify the epilepsy according to the pathological discharge localization. If it is affecting only one hemisphere or localized to a particular part of one hemisphere, we will call it as partial seizure. If it affects both hemisphere of the brain, we will call it a generalized seizure. And the second thing is level of consciousness. In the simple seizures, consciousness will not be lost, whereas in the complex seizure, consciousness is lost. So, partial and generalized, and then simple and complex. Okay, so any epilepsy can be simple partial, can be complex partial, or it can be generalized epilepsy. Now, partial and simple, what does it mean? Partial means only one hemisphere of the brain is involved, and simple means there is no impairment of consciousness. And complex partial means only one hemisphere of the brain is involved, and complex means consciousness is impaired. So we can broadly classify the seizures into partial and generalized. Partial can further be classified into simple partial, complex partial. Then generalized can further be classified as tonic-clonic seizures, absence seizure. Apart from that, myoclonic seizure, atonic seizure, and infantile spasm. Now, what do we mean by tonic-clonic seizure? We call it as grand mal epilepsy also. It is a very common. As you can see, there is two words attached to it, tonic and clonic. In the tonic phase, there is a strong contraction of the whole muscle or whole musculature of the body, causing a rigid extensor spasm and fall. And it is often associated with the ictal cry. So there is actually aura, then the cry, then this tonic phase, then clonic phase. And in the clonic phase, there is rhythmic extremity jerking. So this is about tonic-clonic seizure. So there is a sequence of events that happens in the tonic-clonic seizure. There is an aura, then cry, then unconsciousness, then tonic spasm of the body musculature, then clonic jerking, followed by prolonged sleep and depression of all the CNS functions. So this is the sequence that follows in the tonic-clonic seizures. Now, what is absence seizure? We call it as absence seizure, we call it as petit mal seizure. Tonic-clonic seizure, we call it as grand mal seizure. What is petit mal seizure or absence seizure? Absence seizure mostly happens in children. and it lasts around 30 seconds or 40-45 seconds, or mostly less than a minute. What happens, say for example, a children who is sitting or who is attending the class, all of a sudden he or she will suddenly stop doing what actually he is doing. If he is speaking, he will suddenly stop speaking in the mid sentence, and then he or she will start, or he or she will stare vacantly for few seconds, and there would be minimal or no motor abnormality. And during that particular period of attack, the patient will be unaware of the surrounding. What is happening in the surrounding, the patient will not be aware of. And then once the attack completes or attack terminates, the patient recovers with no after effects. This absence seizure mostly happens in children, and it is, if you do the EEG, it is characterized by the 3 Hz spike wave discharges. We will talk about this later on. As you can see here, say for example, if the patient is reading a book and he suffers an attack of absence seizure, he will suddenly start staring. There will be a vacant stare. The eye will roll upwards. There will be lack of response, and then after 30-40 seconds, the patient will recover. So this is actually absence seizure. Then atonic seizure is sudden loss of postural tone, and if this sudden loss of postural tone is very severe, it can result in the fall of the patient, and if it is milder, it produces jaw drops or head nods, and consciousness is usually impaired, and it rarely lasts more than a minute. So if atonic seizure is severe, it might lead to fall of the patient. Then other type of seizure, particularly myoclonus seizure, there will be brief shock-like jerks of a muscle or group of muscles. Now this is about the basics of epilepsy or seizures. Now let us come to the pharmacology. Before starting the discussion on the drug or drug classes or the classification, let us understand what is the basic pathogenesis or basic pathophysiology that characterizes the epilepsy, or what are the pathological changes that happens in the brain that lead to seizure generation. In the previous class, while we were discussing about sedative hypnotic drugs, we had discussed about 2 neurotransmitters, GABA and glutamate. Which one is inhibitory neurotransmitter and which one is excitatory neurotransmitter? GABA is inhibitory neurotransmitter and Glutamate is excitatory neurotransmitter. So the bottom line is, normally in the healthy brain there is a balance between the inhibitory neurotransmitter and excitatory neurotransmitter. Say for example, if the balance goes towards excitatory neurotransmitter, so naturally there will be more excitation in the brain, leading to the seizure attack. So that is the one thing that is happening. Apart from that, if there is too much ionic inverse sodium current or calcium current, it can also lead to the seizure generation. In contrast, if there is too little ionic inverse chloride channel or chloride current, or too little outward potassium current, it can also lead to seizure. In the previous class we had discussed that the GABA receptor actually encloses the chloride channel. When the GABA binds to its receptor, there is an opening of chloride channel, leading to inward movement of chloride, ultimately leading to CNS depression. So if you have understood this basic thing, you can easily tell what we should do or what type of drug we should design to treat epilepsy. See, the first basic thing that you can do is that you can inhibit or stop the excitatory neurotransmitter. So simply you can block the glutamate, or you can enhance the GABAergic activity, or you can enhance the GABA activity. So apart from that, also we have seen that sodium channel and calcium channel is also involved in the seizure generation. So you can control or modify the voltage gated sodium channel or calcium channel. Okay, so broadly we have three targets. One target, we have to control or modify the voltage gated channels, either sodium or calcium. The second is we have to think about enhancing the GABA activity. The third is we have to think about blocking the glutamate activity. Understood? Understood? Now let us first start with the inhibition of sodium channel, and what role does sodium channel plays in the generation of seizures. What happens during seizures? Neurons starts firing at a very high frequency rate, and once an attack of seizure happens, there is an initial sustained depolarization of the neuronal cells. And along with this sustained depolarization of the neuronal cells, there is a high frequency action potential firing. You can see this particular picture here. So there is a high frequency action potential firing, followed by an extended period of phasic bursting, wherein there is bursting of the action potential in the phases, and it gradually lead to the lessening of the the sustained depolarization, and it is followed by prolonged hyperpolarization. Okay, so initially what is happening, there is sustained depolarization followed by the phasic discharge of the action potential, followed by the prolonged hyperpolarization. Now, what role does this sodium channel plays? In the neuronal cell, the action potential generation is basically dependent upon the sodium channels. And because what we are seeing during the attack of seizure, there is a sustained depolarization followed by the phasic discharge and followed by repolarization. Now, because we have observed that there is a role of sodium channel in this sustained depolarization. So, this particular pathological feature makes the sodium channel blocking an attractive proposition for the treatment of epilepsy. Now, there are two terms that you need to understand. Voltage dependent blocking of the sodium channel and use or time dependent blocking of the sodium channel. What do you mean by voltage dependence to the blocking of sodium channel? And what do you mean by use dependence to the blocking of sodium channel? The meaning of this voltage dependence is that the ability of the anti-epileptic drug, AED is anti-epileptic drug. The ability of the anti-epileptic drug to restrict the firing of action potential increases following a greater membrane depolarization. So the thing is, the sodium channel blocker drugs, they block more effectively in the depolarized cell or in the cells which has gone through the sustained depolarization process. Okay, and what do you mean by use dependence? Use dependence is that the sodium channel blocking will be maximum following a sustained period of intense sodium channel activity. The more is the use, the more will be the blocking. Now, let us understand it very carefully, otherwise it will get very confusing. Okay, so what we have understood is that use dependence means that the blocking will be more if the sodium channel has gone through a sustained period of activity or if there is sustained depolarization. Now, sodium channel blocker which shows use dependence in their activity, what they does, they reduce the high frequency firing without affecting the physiological firing, and they decrease the sodium channel high frequency repetitive firing of action potential by enhancing the sodium channel inactivation. We will understand this in little bit detail. Now let us understand this modulated receptor hypothesis. What does it say? Sodium channel exists in three interconvertible conformational states. One is resting state, another is active state or open state, and third is inactive state. Okay, And don't confuse between resting state and inactive state. Both are different. Okay? Resting state followed by active state or open state, and then inactive state. So let us first start with this resting state. When the membrane is at resting potential, most of the channel will be in the resting phase. Okay? And then once the depolarization happens, this membrane depolarization will convert the channel to the active state or to the open state. Are you getting my point? Resting state, then open state or active state. So in the active state, the depolarization has happened. Now imagine a scenario if there is a sustained depolarization. Okay. This sustained depolarization, what it will cause, it will lead to blocking of channel, or it will lead to some sodium channel becoming inactive. Understood? So difference between resting phase and inactive phase, is it clear? In the inactive phase, the channel is inactive because of sustained depolarization. Okay. As I told you, use dependent sodium channel blocking was if the blocking will be more if there is sustained depolarization. And in the inactive phase, the inactiveness has happened because of sustained depolarization. Okay. So the antiepileptic drugs, which are sodium channel blockers, they have a strong affinity for sodium channel in the inactive state, and they have a relatively weak affinity for the resting state or resting phase. Have you understood? So the maximal action of the antiepileptic drug, which are sodium channel blocker, happens during sustained period of membrane depolarization, when some channel, because of the sustained depolarization, get converted into the inactive state. So what we have understood, the sodium channel inhibitors, they block the voltage gated sodium channel by selectively binding to the channel during which phase? During the inactive phase or inactive state, and it ultimately slows down its rate of recovery. So because these sodium channel blockers, what it does, it blocks the voltage gated sodium channel by binding to the channel in the inactive state. What it does, it stabilizes them in the inactive state. So because it stabilizes them in the inactive state, it will prevent the repetitive firing at the high frequency. Are you getting my point? Yes? So let us understand what are the drugs which targets this voltage dependent sodium channel and which shows the use dependence. Phenytoin, fosphenytoin. Apart from that, carbamazepine, lamotrigine, valproate, topiramate, zonisamide. If you don't remember all the drugs, at least remember the major drug. In this case, at least remember about phenytoin. So phenytoin basically blocks the voltage dependent sodium channel at high firing frequency, and this shows the phenomenon of use dependence. So you have understood how this sodium channel blocking helps in preventing the seizure, and what do we mean by the voltage dependence or use dependence blocking? What are the different conformational stages of the sodium channel? Let us move on to the next target, that is blocking of the calcium channel. Now, what do you mean by sodium channel inhibition, or sorry, calcium channel inhibition in the context of the treatment of epilepsy? What happens, particularly in the context of absence seizure? This calcium channel blocking is very important. What happens in the absence seizure? The thalamic neurons, they produces a spontaneous oscillatory activity of low frequency of approximately 3 Hz, and these spontaneous oscillatory activity, or we can say the pacemaker oscillations, involve T current, and these T current is actually a low threshold calcium current. So what we are noticing, that in the absence seizure, the thalamic neuron is generating the spontaneous oscillatory activity of low frequency, and the thalamic neuron is exhibiting prominent T current, which is nothing but a low threshold calcium current. So these oscillatory activity of low frequency is actually plays an important role in the generation of 3 Hz spike wave rhythm in absence seizure. So if we block the calcium channel, what happens actually, this T current, which is a low threshold calcium current, if we reduce the flow of calcium through this T type calcium channel in the thalamus, we can reduce or we can treat absence seizure. So in absence seizure, because thalamic neuron exhibit prominent T current, which is a low threshold calcium current, if we block these T type current, we can effectively treat the absence seizure. So mainly there is two drugs which targets or which leads to reduction in the flow of calcium through the T type calcium channel in the thalamus. One is ethosuximide, the other is valproate. Ethosuximide has only got this particular action of reduction of the flow of calcium through the T type calcium channel in the thalamus. Because ethosuximide has only this particular action, it is only effective in the absence seizure. Whereas if you can see valproate have got multiple action. We had earlier seen that it had got a role in sodium channel blocking. Now we have seen it has also got a role in calcium channel blocking. Later on we will see it has also got a role in the GABA modulation or the glutamate modulation. So it has got multiple action, valproate. And because it has got multiple action, we call it as pleiotropic anti-epileptic drug, which can be effective in various types of epilepsy. Now let us understand about the third target, which is the GABA. we need to enhance the GABAergic activity, or we need to enhance the GABAergic inhibition. In contrast to glutamate, GABA is a major inhibitory neurotransmitter in the CNS. And because it is a inhibitory neurotransmitter, it plays a major role in reducing the excitability of the neurons. So how we can enhance the GABA activity? In the previous class, we had seen the role of barbiturates and we had seen the role of benzodiazepines. Barbiturates, in a higher dosage, it has also got GABA mimetic activity. So barbiturates and benzodiazepine, they binds directly to the GABA A receptors. Their binding sites are different from that of the GABA. And what that does, they enhances the chloride influx, which increases the negativity of the cells. So benzodiazepines, they increases the frequency of GABA mediated chloride channel opening. This we have already discussed in the previous class. Benzodiazepines increases the frequency of chloride channel opening, whereas barbiturates, they increases the duration of the GABA mediated chloride channel opening. Apart from that, barbiturates also have got, as I have told you earlier, in higher doses GABA mimetic activity. It can also antagonize the glutamate or apart from that, again valproate is coming here. Valproate also enhances the GABA inhibition. How valproate enhances the GABA inhibition? They inhibit the GABA transaminase enzyme. So this inhibition of GABA transaminase enzyme, what it will do? It will make more availability of GABA because of less metabolism of GABA, resulting in more availability of GABA in the synaptic cleft. The same action happens with vigabatrin. Then there is one drug which is known as tiagabine. Tiagabine actually inhibits the reuptake of the GABA. Now we had previously discussed this reuptake phenomenon. If we inhibit reuptake phenomenon, it will basically reduces the metabolism. It will reduce the metabolism of that particular transmitter or neurotransmitter. So tiagabine, because it inhibits the reuptake of GABA, it will result in more availability of GABA in the synaptic cleft. So what are the drugs that we have seen which modulates the GABA activity or which enhances the GABA inhibition? Benzodiazepines, barbiturates, valproate, vigabatrin and tiagabine. So till now we have understood about sodium channel inhibitors, calcium channel inhibitors and enhancement of GABAergic inhibition. So this we have already discussed just now. Apart from benzodiazepines and barbiturates, we have vigabatrin, tiagabine, valproate, just notice the role of valproate. Valproate, as I have told you, they have got multiple action. We have seen in the sodium channel inhibition, they have got a role to play. In the calcium channel inhibition, they have got a role to play. Now we are seeing here, they are also enhancing the GABA inhibition or GABAergic inhibitory activity. Now what about the glutamate blockers? Now glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. We need to inhibit the glutamate activity because it is the main excitatory neurotransmitter. Now glutamate receptor, mainly AMPA type or NMDA receptors. Now there are various drugs such as felbamate, levetiracetam, topiramate, lamotrigine, valproate, which basically targets the glutamate receptors. For example, felbamate, it targets NMDA receptor, whereas topiramate, it targets AMPA receptor. Now to summarize what we have seen, we had started with the sodium channel inhibition, and apart from phenytoin, we had seen there are other drugs which has got a role to play in sodium channel inhibition or in prolonging the sodium channel inhibition. Apart from phenytoin, we had seen carbamazepine, valproate, lamotrigine, topiramate, zonisamide, and lacosamide. Then inhibition of calcium channel function, particularly T-type calcium channel inhibition. What were the drugs? Ethosuximide, valproate, and zonisamide. Then enhancement of GABAergic inhibition. Benzodiazepines, barbiturate. Phenobarbital is actually a barbiturate. Okay. Benzodiazepines, barbiturate, again valproate, vigabatrin, tiagabine, gabapentin, topiramate. And then the glutamate inhibition, the drugs are felbamate, topiramate, levetiracetam. Also valproate is here, lamotrigine, lacosamide. Now if you see, if we make 4 boxes or 4 circles and start putting the names of all the drugs as per their mechanism of action, there will be certain overlapping. You can see in this picture, valproate is coming everywhere. Valproate is everywhere. Sodium channel inhibition, it is there. Calcium channel inhibition, it is there. Decreased glutamate activity, it is there. Enhancing the GABAergic inhibition, it is there. So it has got multiplicity of action. It has got multiple actions. So that's why we call it as pleiotropic anti-epileptic drug, or we can also call it as broad spectrum anti-epileptic drug. Because at the one hand, it is effective in absence seizure because it is blocking the calcium channel, and it has got other roles. For example, it is also inhibiting the sodium channel. It is also very effective in tonic-clonic seizure, or it is also effective in myoclonic seizure. In fact, in the myoclonic seizure, it is the drug of choice. In the absence seizure, it is also the preferred drug, or we can say a drug of choice. Apart from that, one more thing you can notice, ethosuximide. Ethosuximide has got one specific action of inhibiting the calcium channel. So ethosuximide is only effective in absence seizure. It will not be effective in tonic-clonic seizure. Apart from valproate, apart from ethosuximide, now let us take up the other drugs, particularly the newer anti-epileptic drugs. What we are noticing, topiramate have also got multiple action, at least 2 action we are noticing here in this slide. It is blocking the sodium channel, and also it is blocking the glutamate activity. Then zonisamide has also got multiple action. So what I am trying to say is that if you remember the classification of antiepileptic drugs as per their mechanism of action or as per their targets or drug targets, it is very easier for you to understand or remember the classification, and also it gives you a conceptual clarity. So we will discuss the individual drug classes in the next class. Okay. So till now, thank you.